Hadoop is not a thing. Hadoop is a set of things. It's a series of different independently developed and managed projects.
Can you explain in small words what Hadoop is and what holds it together? Why do we care about it?
In small words, a big system composed of small pieces for working with large amounts of data all at the same time.
And its net effect is
it changes the economics of computing. The idea is that I can compose a simple environment that only provides a relatively limited set of functions on very inexpensive hardware, scale it very granularly, small incremental investments as the volume of data grows, and use tools that are relatively familiar to people who were working with things like websites today, increasingly complex statistical tool sets tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow, very complex, high volume, real-time analytic environments. But that's the future. Today, largely, Hadoop is being used for batch analytics, often largely extract, transform, load, ETL style. The dribbling out of data from larger data sets, typically a file in, file out kind of model where I take some stuff, I manipulate it and decide whether it's valuable or not, and then I put it somewhere else for further use. And that may stay in the Hadoop environment, or it may move to some other environment where I have a different way of storing it and a different way of analyzing it. And perhaps a set of tools that my analysts are already familiar with, which is a very high value. I don't want to have to train people in an entirely new set of tools if I can avoid it.
So I get it as an ETL tool in there, but am I wrong in thinking that this is an inexpensive way of managing big storage?
It's an inexpensive way of managing the data that's on that big storage. And it may sound like a nuance, but the fact is that the content of the files that are put on Hadoop can be as different as anything you've ever touched. It could be everything from instrument reads from a smart electric meter to the conversations people had with one another on Twitter last night, to a standard transactional stream from a point of sale system that I always tend to fork off into a general ledger somewhere on the one hand and a customer information record on the other, but I still do in fact keep that original tick stream. And I may decide I want to go back later and understand more about whether things happen between 3 and 4 o'clock in the afternoon that are different from the things that happen between 10 and 11, and I never looked at that before.
So storing and reading some of that operational data that's out there is a good ticket for this.
Absolutely, as well as incorporating new kinds of information we've never used before but now have access to. I'll give you an example. In a retail environment, a point of sale system records a very limited number of things because the objective is to get that transaction recorded, make sure it goes into the day's financial reports, and the money hits the bank as quickly as possible. That's it. In many businesses, we have conformed the way we operate the businesses to the demands of the systems. And so this reductive processing approach doesn't tell me that directly opposite that cash register was a giant stack of the things I just bought with a big 20% off sign on them. And that might have had some influence on whether I made that purchase. Or that I was on the website all night last night looking through the different alternative versions of that product to make my product decision. Or, well, you can think of a half a dozen other things. The point is every one of those things has information associated with it that I can now capture and I can combine to restore the context and help me understand why that purchase was made much better than I ever could before.
Okay, sounds great. What are the challenges?
Complexity. These are new data types. Volume, because, well, every new data type and every new data feed is additional volume. Skills, because I may not have them. And finally, the question of correlation itself is why we need two kinds of people on the team that aren't about programming or managing hardware. People who understand advanced statistical analysis in the abstract might be able to take a look at a set of 1,000 variables and say, well, if I run this kind of statistical analysis on it, I can discover which of these are correlated. Then maybe I can figure out why. That's what I need that business guy for. So I probably need both of them. Those sets of skills rarely occur in the same physical body. So we probably need more than one person on the team to do those things.
And what are the key decisions? There's always a lot of smart people out there telling me what I should do next, but you know, Hadoop is there. What are the key decisions or the key points in the decision process that I should know about?
Well, first, the decision to use Hadoop itself, obviously. Let's assume, for the sake of this conversation, that decision's already been made. The next question is, what's Hadoop? To go back to your first question, Hadoop is not a thing. Hadoop is a set of things. It's a series of different independently developed and managed projects, since we're in Canada, that...
We're bilingual here. You can say projects or projects. You know.
They get combined into a stack of functionality, and at every layer of that stack there are alternatives, and depending on which distributor I get my Hadoop distribution from, I may have this one but not that one. So I have to conform my technology selection to the tasks at hand and ensure that there are no gaps. And also, by the way, since I may be paying for this, that I don't waste my money buying things I don't need to do. One of the reasons that these technologies are rising as fast as they are is that there are far more powerful things I could do much of this work with, but they also cost a great deal more. And to go back to the earlier comment about the value of the data, if I own a Jaguar and a 10-year-old Honda Civic, and I have room in my driveway for one car and in my garage for one car, unless I'm determined to impress the neighbors, the Jaguar probably goes in the garage, and the Civic goes out on the driveway. I need to create an environment that allows me to partition the data in a way that conforms best to the value of its usage.
Great. Any best practices out there for deploying Hadoop that you've seen?
The best practices I've seen are to understand that what you're doing is experimental, to have a very clear idea in mind of test and development as separate from production, and to find the best ways to do the test at least cost. So the cloud tends to be a very good place to do the first experiments. And if not the cloud, then at least, given that almost all the distributors have community editions, i.e. free, get a free copy, start playing with it, find value, then when you're ready to do something that is likely to become production, at that point, start writing a check to someone who can support it for you.
And if I'm hearing you right, it's experiment first.
Absolutely.
This has been our discussion with Merv Adrian, the Research VP with Gartner Group. Some fascinating discussions on DBMS, databases, and data management.